Yeah. Secretary Clinton is currently in Nigeria as part of a 7-nation tour of the African continent. She was answering a question about corruption surrounding Nigeria's recent election and drew parallels to the 2000 election in the United States. Listen.
Our democracy is still evolving. You know, we had all kinds of problems in some of our past elections, as you might remember. In 2000, our presidential election came down to one state where the brother of the man running for president was the governor of the state. So we have our problems, too.
What's the implication there?
All right, Hillary Clinton stopping in Nigeria, comparing corruption in that country's elections with the 2000 presidential election here in the U.S. Take a listen to this.
Hillary Clinton, the Secretary of State of the United States of America, is overseas, and she suggests that the governor of Florida, Jeb Bush, rigged the election for George W. Bush. I was there. That is an unfair, slanderous assessment.
So Hillary Clinton, on the one hand, Tina Brown says she's doing a spectacular job, great 6 months. At the same time, there's this nasty web clip of her carrying on.
In the big picture, Secretary of State Hillary Clinton continues her 10-day African visit today in Liberia, but it's what she said about the 2000 U.S. presidential election that's making headlines here at home.
So there she is. She did not apparently answer the question directly. It was something related to her husband. But nonetheless, will this be her Achilles heel, no matter how well she's received and reviewed in this position, that it will perhaps come back to trying to, again, connect the dots with her and her husband and try to psychoanalyze her?
Certainly a story that's very frustrating to the Clinton people, the people around her. I know that they wanted this trip. She's been gone for 11 days. She's gone to 7 countries in Africa, and they were hoping that we'd all be talking about her work with rape victims and her diplomacy efforts in all these countries, and instead the focus has been on her comments.
How should we judge Hillary Clinton? She's a bitch.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Are we allowed to say that?
I did. Anyway, go ahead, Jonathan. I mean, that's what we're talking about, right? It's sort of like, well, look.
So she seems to be suggesting that the election was stolen from Al Gore. Many people believe that. But is that the right thing for a diplomat, for the Secretary of State to be suggesting?
Perhaps she went a little too far.
And if you think Cheney feels liberated to talk the way he wants about George W. Bush, wait till you hear the Secretary of State's remarks about the former president in Nigeria.
This time, it's about Bush versus Gore.
In 2000, our presidential election came down to one state where the brother of the man running for president was the governor of the state. So we have our problems, too.
And why some are now slamming her latest remarks.
The fallout for Secretary Clinton. Her remark about the 2000 election is the second controversial comment she's made on her overseas trip. Ann Kornbluth is a White House reporter for the Washington Post. So, Ann, everyone is trying to psychoanalyze this. They're looking in crystal balls. They're looking at the past, and they're even looking at what happened in North Korea. Is this a real storyline here? Is this a different side of Secretary Clinton than we've seen?
You know, if we think of this as a light moment, talking about democracy in parts of the world where democracy is barely understood, where it's in its juvenile stages at best, is this the way to describe the American democracy, which is actually...
It happened at a town hall. All right, let's just discontinue town halls forever, for everybody. A cautionary tale to fledgling democracy. Remember the lessons learned from past elections. You know, like that one time when one guy got more votes, but the other guy got to be president, and the other guy's brother was running the state where the ballots were being questioned. That election. And our number one story, a slight twist on this, of course, the town hall was in Nigeria, and the person issuing the warning was Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. As it turns out, 2008 was not the only U.S. election that could provide a teachable moment to Nigerians, she thought. A spokesperson for that man in the middle, former Florida Governor Jeb Bush, offering this reaction. Governor Bush is declining to weigh in on these ill-advised comments. All right, even though former Governor Bush gave a measured response, the right is predictably piling on these comments from Hillary Clinton.
And that means no light moments, no moments that could possibly be misinterpreted.
And Hillary is like cats, you know, the longest running in town, and everyone loves to comment.
You know, if we think of this, but was she then telling people around the world that governors of the 50 states control the outcomes of the election in their states? Roger Simon, is that what she wanted people to think? Ryan, Liza, do we really have evidence that Jeb Bush stole an election, and is that what Hillary Clinton should be telling people in Africa?
Just how well is she able to channel what President Obama wants out of foreign policy and bring it back to the United States?
And I think on balance what she's done on this trip has been a combination of being very brave
and to some extent being a little foolhardy as well.
The other thing is it plays to her reputation. Hillary Clinton, going back to the time she was First Lady and the wife of the candidate for president back in the early 90s, she had a reputation, well-deserved, as I'm told from people who've talked to her, for being quick-tempered and fiercely tempered. So again, it lives up to her reputation.
Yeah, I'll just raise a couple of questions. Bill Clinton, go.
Yeah. Now, did you notice, Keith, the body language of Mrs. Clinton in that clip that you showed, in which she kept patting her heart or something? She seemed very nervous as she was making the reference to 2000. Now, I think it was a bridge too far. If Mrs. Clinton had stopped, Secretary Clinton had stopped with, yes, we have problems of our own. However, to name the Bushes, I think might have been just a bit too much. She was 8 time zones away. She had surgery for her elbow. It was probably aching a little. She's tired. She went a little too far.
And Mike Barnacle, you agree Hillary Clinton may be the Thomas Jefferson of the 21st century? Hillary goes to Paris.
I also don't think...
Her demeanor, certainly she didn't snap the way she did the first time. Given that she's the chief diplomat, the question is, are these the most diplomatic words she could have uttered? And does she have to be more diplomatic than she was as a candidate or even as a senator, given her role now?
Did she have a bad week, or is she simply getting a bad rap? Secretary of State Hillary Clinton feeling the heat over comments she made about the 2000 presidential election. This on the heels of another angry outburst involving Bill Clinton. Is she tired? Is she ready to come home? Is she just misunderstood? Or is she simply a victim that will file that report as in dispute?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll accept it, but we're going to put a little red marker.
I want the recount done immediately.
Dispute. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton wrapping up an 11-day, 7-nation trip of Africa tomorrow, but not without a few bumps and bruises along the way.
You know, I think all of this, we look at the Clintons through, I think, a funhouse mirror. Anything they do, anything they say is interpreted, parsed, pulled apart.
And by the end of a trip like this, you're liable to say anything. I think the point she was trying to make was...
And she has.
Exactly.
Hillary Clinton, the Secretary of State of the United States of America, is overseas, and she suggests that the governor of Florida, Jeb Bush, rigged the election for George W. Bush. I was there. That is an unfair, slanderous assessment.
Quite simply, you say this is sexism, pure and simple.
And so she's sending a message to the men and women in that room and in Africa that she will not be condescended to, and not as a woman and not as Secretary of State of the United States of America.
The fact that things might look bad is just as important to tell people, I think, as, you know, whether or not there really isn't something to that connection that she implied. Is there not sort of pointlessness in the right coming back at her about this?
You know, they might make a small point, but they're making a big point, and so they lose out. It's like people at town halls who compare Obama to Hitler. And by the way, the Clintons are just such easy targets. You know, it is irresistible to make something big out of something little that the Clintons might do wrong.
I've had a great time on this trip. I opened this newspaper, and I think she looks like she's having a great time. And from my perspective, the most important part of this trip are the relationships that we have built, the commitments that we have discussed, the problems that we have honestly explored.
Roger Simon, referee this one. Unfair, slanderous assessment?
You know, this is Kinsley's Law. You only, you know, get attacked when you speak the truth. I think the only criticism you could make is that Jeb Bush didn't steal it very effectively. He should have done it by a lot more votes than he ended up doing it. You know, I really don't see the problem with this. I mean, what went on in Florida is historic fact. I think you could make the case that it went beyond Jeb Bush to one vote of the Supreme Court, but he might as well tell people in foreign countries the truth about democracy. It doesn't always work perfectly.
We all want an America defined by deep and meaningful equality, from civil rights to labor rights, from women's rights to gay rights, from ending discrimination. There are no acceptable limits, and there are no acceptable prejudices in the 21st century in our country.
We have a common task and a common challenge.
Why can't we see that we are all in this together?
18 million of you from all walks of life. Women and men, young and old, Latino and Asian, African American and Caucasian, rich, poor and middle class, gay and straight, you have stood with me. And I will continue to stand strong with you every time, every place, and every way that I can. The dreams we share are worth fighting for.
Look, she stated a fact.